What's up, you guys? Welcome to today's video. As you can tell, Reese is back again with another crazy freaking story time.
Oh gosh.
This one makes me sweat.
I am just always hoping people that I work with watch these videos.
Hi.
Oh, hey. If you see this, just act like you didn't and don't
Keep
bring
scrolling.
it up. Yeah. Just scroll, swipe up. So anyway.
If you guys are new here, hi, my name is Jess. I'm a person in recovery. If you guys are new here, hi, my name is Jess. I'm a person in long-term recovery. This is my boyfriend, Reese, who's gonna be annoying the whole time.
This guy. I'm her boyfriend, Reese. There's not gonna be somebody coming in. I'm not holding down the seat, so.
If you want to follow me on any other social media platform, TikTok, Instagram, Patreon, it's $2. Only ever going to be $2. All of that is linked down below. I am also a proud partner with Groups Recovered Together. They are available in 12 states. They strongly lean on harm reduction. They are 420 friendly, and they are just the best team of people. They offer both online and in-person treatment and therapy, and I love them so much. All right, let's kick this thing off. Before we get into it, I will link Reese's entire playlist in the description box down below. Feel free to fall down a YouTube rabbit hole. Don't skip those ads. They are paying the mortgage.
Yeah, baby.
Welcome to another episode of Rent is Due.
No given. That's right. Holy
I just wish YouTubers said that.
I know, right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
It's that time of the month again.
Be sure you watch the whole ad, baby.
Oh my gosh, I'm so annoying today.
Okay,
I'm basically going to be in the background of this video asking questions here or there. I'm going to yield my time to the beautiful man sitting here.
To the one and the only.
I found one.
Should have been arrested a lot more than I was. So, we talked about this. You know about this, so I guess maybe you can lead with it some, and I'll kind of elaborate as I go, and you know, I'll try to articulate the best I can where I was at in my life and kind of how I got into this. But this was a pretty elaborate scheme, and you know, so this was somewhere around 2009 or whatever. I was in between jobs, which basically means I was unemployable because I'm licking my face off. I'd lost my company and the things I was doing with, you know, kind of working on my own. I'd gotten another job with a large company in Northwest Arkansas in the same industry, logistics and transportation. I kind of burnt that bridge, and you know, my drug use and my addiction was, I was basically spiraling out of control, right? And I had you know, a lot of friends, you know, I guess associates in the drug world, and you know, obviously I didn't look like a lifelong, you know, not a lifelong. I've been using meth for about 7 or 8 years, but I still was a kind of a bigger framed guy. I didn't ever get really skinny. Maybe 200 pounds is the least I got down to. I'm only 5'8". I had a nice house. I had a nice vehicle. I showered every day. You know, I was still exercising some, and I took care of myself. You know what I mean?
So what you're saying here is addiction does not discriminate.
Correct.
At all.
Yeah, correct. If you know, I mean, I think I did a pretty good job at the employment I lost my last employer. I was holding it together the best I could. After working there about 18 months, at the end it started to get excessive, and people were like, "Hey, something's not right with this dude." So anyway,
you were inconsistent.
I was inconsistent.
Asleep.
Yeah, falling asleep. But anyway, I still very much, you know, most of my meth use was done in secret for a long time. You know, I was not a social user. I hid it from my family, from friends. You know, I worked alone, lived alone. But anyway, so how I got into this, I had a few friends that, you know, were associates. We'll call them, I don't know if friends is a bad word, but at the time they seemed like friends. And they knew that, you know, that life was not going real well for me, and, you know, an extra stream of revenue would be kind of cool. And, you know, they said, "Hey, I got somebody I want you to meet." And this was the guy that was actually had been selling me meth for a number of years. And he was kind of well connected. And he said, "Hey, I got somebody I want you to meet. Maybe you two can come to an arrangement, and, you know, I'll make the introductions." So anyhow, he hooks me up with this guy, and he comes over, and this guy and his partner come by, and they turn me on to it. And this is, like I said, 2010. This is right when the opioid crisis is really hitting America hard, right? And we're talking about, you know, pharmaceutical pills were becoming really readily available and rampant. This is about timeline for you. This is kind of where really, would you say that's about early 2000s, 2010 is really when the pill crisis got bad?
So in New York, it was different. The pill crisis was already on us long before 2010. Around 2009, 2010, that's when we saw a heavy like push to make them gummy and not shootable, and it was very difficult to get pills in upstate New York period, because they were changing it. Arkansas, and the timelines for different drugs across the country are a little bit different.
They overlap some, yeah.
So
anyway, this was going on, and I was never a pill user. I was never a downers guy. I'd had some, dabbled with it a little bit, and it just wasn't in my wheelhouse. I like to go fast. I wanted speed. You know what I mean? So they come by, and what this discussion was about a business arrangement. Like I said, I still very much so, my appearances I could hold together. I didn't, I wasn't interested in pills or taking pills. I could be trusted for what they needed, and what they needed was somebody to fill fake prescriptions for them. And when I say fake, I don't know exactly how they'd come about it, but somehow they had gotten it. In Arkansas, they started noticing that the pills were a problem, right? So they started making it very, very hard to get prescriptions. They started making the screening process. They recognized there was an issue, and they were trying to kind of funnel that down. Well, anyway, somehow these guys had gotten a hold of the actual hologram prescription papers. So when I say that, if you don't know, it looked like a piece of paper. It was a little thicker, had some texture to it, but if you held it up to the light, it had holograms all the way through it. Just kind of like a driver's license or something would. Not a watermark, a hologram, kind of like the money strip would have, right? Yeah. They had,
oh my gosh,
could have been 2,000 sheets of them.
To pause here, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. In the addict world, that is like winning the lottery. Yeah. This is priceless. Yeah. It's invaluable what they have, and they are sitting on a gold mine.
Yeah. And what the main guy had done, he wasn't really, he wasn't tech savvy, but he knew the girl he was dating at the time, her younger brother was. So what they had done is they had gone around and knew people that were filling prescriptions at like large medical clinics, because we're in Northwest Arkansas, so there's very, very few different clinics. One clinic might use one format and header and everything else. One hospital, might have several clinics, and they all use it. What they had done is he had a USB stick on a laptop where he knew he could rotate clinics or whatever, put it in, and on the paper, when they used a laser printer on this hologram paper, it would blast. It would knew the header, the font, the size, the placement of everything that would lay out. So all they would have to go in and do, if they had a doctor's name, and then every doctor has a DEA number, which will allow that doctor to prescribe narcotics. And I forget, I would have to look it up, but I remember there's actually a certain formula that sequences this number that allows a pharmacist or anybody, if they look at it really quick, they know how to do the math, and they'll recognize that, this sequence adds up. It's definitely something that's identifiable. Beside the point, if you had a doctor's name or a dentist that you knew they could prescribe narcotics, all you needed was whatever clinic or hospital or whatever group they belong to. If you had that name, and even better, the name and the DEA number, well, if you had somebody that had a prescription with the signature on it, they would just sit there and practice the signature until they got it down. All they had to do then at that point, they had the hologram paper, the format for the group that he was in, his name, his DEA number, boom, voila, enter, name, you have what looks like to almost everybody that could possibly be dealing with it, a real prescription. The only way to know it's fake is if you call it in to the doctor or the clinic, and obviously the person that they're prescribing it to isn't real. Now, they couldn't use my name on a bunch of stuff, because then it would lead to a large paper trail. What they would do is they would use a real address, a real name. They would look people up, okay, in the phone book. So these were real people, all right? Well, it needed to be somebody's name, and I would go in and fill it with this prescription, okay? And most of the time what my MO is I would go on like a Sunday, and I would hit like 2 pharmacies. I would wear my dress slacks like I was going to work. I'm just getting out of church. I'm trying to fill this for my elderly neighbor. She wanted me to stop by, and I had the name memorized, the address, the birth date, everything they could ask me. Turn on a little bit of charm. I would try to fill them in the nice part of town or whatever I could if I'd hit, and I would just try to rotate pharmacies. And so I would hit a couple on Sundays. I would hit a couple like on, like Wednesday when they have mass. I would try to always make it look like I was coming from something churchy or something, that people recognized as a common, social norm, so I had a reason to, I would dress up and I would hit. And sometimes I would hit 2 or 3 pharmacies in one pop.
Like you're just running errands that day after church.
And I would turn it in. Hey, come back an hour. And oftentimes Sunday, the pharmacies are open, but the doctor's offices and the clinics are closed, so they can't call it in. And after hours, like on a Wednesday, that's when I'd fill it. Hey, I just got done with, evening church, it's 7. Hey, pharmacy's open for another couple of hours. I'd hit a couple and they couldn't call in because there was nobody to call. They were out. So I was trying to time this where I could get
That's smart.
we were being, and they had, like I said, what was really intense was those prescriptions, the only way to know they were fake was to call the clinic or the doctor and verify. Did you write a prescription for 120, 30 milligram Oxycontins for, Debbie Hopper on, Rose Street in, Bella Vista, Arkansas? Well, no, you know what I mean? So I thought, this is great. This is, they hooked it up. They presented it to me. I thought, this will work, and they were paying me $400 cash to fill these scripts. And because I wasn't a pillhead, I wasn't going to hawk them on them. I wasn't going to steal, I just wanted the money. They were like, hey, we'll give you, either $400 or we'll give you some pills. I was like, I don't care about the pills. Or, well, you can sell them. I'm like, I don't want to sell them either. Just give me my money. You know what I mean? So they're like, this, for them, it was great, because they knew they could trust me with filling it. The biggest thing is not to get caught losing the paper. Because if you lost the paper and they called it in, that's the first sign to anybody that's looking at it aggressively, the Drug Task Force unit. Somebody calls it in and they say, no, we didn't write a prescription to this person on this date for Oxycontins. Well, at that point in time, the doctor's going to say, I have what looks like a real prescription on the hologram safety papers that nobody should have access to. What's going on? One, maybe it's a coincidence. 2, starts to look suspicious. When they start popping up all over town, now you've got a drug ring problem. You've got somebody that's running an elaborate scheme. Yeah. And
because these are real, they don't know, is the doctor a pill doctor? Like just giving away all of these prescriptions? Like,
correct.
Are these real patients? So they don't know who it's on. They don't know if it's on the doctor because these are real hologram prescriptions, or is it something else?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And obviously, a couple times I got stalled on. You never want to try to give your ID because they want, they scan your ID. Well, hey, they get you on a Sunday, they get your ID and your name and everything else. They'll call on Monday, and this is how I got caught. Playing it fast and loose. I'm like, all right, I needed to fill a couple. Well, I got hung up. I was trying to hit 3 on a Sunday again, and it was a Walmart and Walmart Neighborhood Market. And I went in. They said, hey, we're gonna need your ID. And I was like, fuck, I've shown it before. Nothing ever came back to me. So I thought, all right, it's not a big deal. I'll glaze past this one. You know what I mean? Got a little confident, and so I showed it. They took it. They took it, probably scanned it or whatever, and then gave me the script, and I left. And I'm thinking, I got out of the store clean. I'm fine, right? That's all. At first, when they hand you the script, it's always thinking like, am I going to get out of this store okay? You know what I mean? Like, are they going to get jumped? Never happened to me. But anyway, that's how they caught on to me. I gave that ID, and finally, the pharmacy somebody probably caught on to it, because unbeknownst to me, these 2 gentlemen weren't using just me, like I thought. Because I thought, in a perfect world, hey, we fill 3 or 4 of these a week, maybe 5. We rotate doctors' names, we spread them out. Dude, nobody's gonna ever figure this out. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We're not robbing a bank. You know what I mean? We're stealing ones from the till, basically. You know what I mean? I was like, we're just skimming a little bit. Yeah. Well, I didn't realize that these guys were also using a very heavy amount of these pills. This was the only way they were making money. You know what I mean? And anyhow, the secret was out. That pharmacy, somebody must have called and said, hey, we've got somebody passing off fake scripts that look real. So that pharmacy at Walmart took my ID, the next day called it in, realized they had a fake, and they said, hey, we took this guy's ID, we've got camera on him, come and take a look. And that's pretty much, I know, because when they arrested me and I went to court, they had all that stuff on me that was in the discovery packet. But yeah, I got caught for that. And that, we went through a mugshot video, and that was one of my mugshots, and they came to the house, SWAT team and everything. I mean, and they tried to push for a little bit of information when they came by the first time, the investigators, and I wasn't going to give it up. But second time they picked me up, took me in. The 2 gentlemen already had, part of the arrangement was, and I'm sure that they wanted it this way, they knew I had an awful lot of information. As soon as I could make bond, they had a bondsman and a lawyer ready. a lawyer, an attorney.
He says lawyer. As they should.
Correct.
When you are working with people that are loyal enough, smart enough, they should be there as soon as you have bail money. Yeah. That's a good indication, just to make it about me for a second. When I was messing around in Arkansas, no one was there for me. No one cared. You know, I always thought I would have just a little bit of loyalty. Yeah. You know who's loyal to me through all of my time? My mom. My mom was the one writing me letters. Remember that when you're trashing around, you know? Yeah. So your story is like a unicorn story for them to have enough loyalty to get you out immediately.
Well, I mean, I had a lot of information too.
So did I.
So did I. Anyhow, but they got me out. And I never folded, you know, and they didn't, honestly, what I thought was a little odd, they didn't press me real hard. Like, I think that, you know,
maybe they just didn't need to.
At the time, I had a house, you know what I mean? Like, they knew my background a little bit. I'm sure, you know, I didn't have a huge record. I think they probably knew where my place was in this scheme. They knew I wasn't the mastermind writing these scripts, right? Yeah. And I'm sure that they probably had enough information that somebody knew there was a whole lot of Oxycontin floating around, and there was 2 people that had, for some reason, were all these the names that got brought up, and I mean, you know, in the drug world, you would know somebody if they were filling 5, 6, 120 pills, 30 milligram of oxys a week. These guys were just a fiend's friend, just a dream world. I mean, they just had tons of it.
The information that gets passed around in that world is crazy. We know who's got it. We know what's going on. We know that all these are hitting the street before cops know. Yeah. We know. Yeah. And it doesn't take much pressure when you ask an addict, you know, where is this coming from? You're going to go to jail and you're going to detox alone in a dirty jail cell in pain unless you tell us where these are coming from. Did they get caught? Did they go to?
Oh yeah,
they did.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they got picked up for that specifically later. They got picked up on other stuff, and I'm sure I think
we've seen them.
Yeah,
rotate.
I've showed them a couple times. They've rotated through still to this day.
Yeah.
But anyway, like I said, at first, you know, I thought, man, this is so easy. You know, I'm sliding right by with this. I was like, this isn't like a chicken scratch, like, you know, like something you write when you're a kid trying to, you know, my mom gave me a note to get out of school, you know. I thought, this is a well laid out plan. Mm-hmm. You guys have got something. You've got something here. And, you know, I thought, well, as long as we spread this out, we rotate names so one doctor's name is not filling 100 of these things a month, we're going to be okay. I was like, we can run this, we could grift this area for years. Hell, we could even move on. You know what I mean? We could. Anyway, in my mind, I had it all worked out. What I didn't realize, I was dealing with people that were, you know, in very severe addiction themselves.
You didn't realize you were working with addicts?
I thought, you know, maybe.
You're just so cute. You're so cute.
Yeah, you know, I was just really naive at this point. Like I said, after this point, most of my drug addiction had been done alone. Very isolated. You know, I wasn't very, you know, I had 1 or 2 guys that were actually, you know, I always had a job when I worked for myself, a lot of money, access to, you know, money and a lot of autonomy, especially when you're working for yourself. Nobody tells you what to do, you know, and I lived on my own, you know, and I think that, you know, I always just had my drugs delivered like dominoes, you know, come drop me off whatever I ordered, and, you know, they pop, I just hand them the money and I just go about my way. You know, I wasn't ever selling drugs or doing the drugs with people. I was using it kind of as my tool anyway to keep up with, you know, what I thought was my really productive life. And so I didn't know what people were about. I didn't know what really, you know, my exposure to addicts in the world of addiction and how people get, and you know the stages where, you know, I'd never been in a world where people were living off of just the money they sold drugs on. I always worked so I could afford my drugs. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't trying to sell drugs. I thought if I had a good job, I could afford my drugs just like somebody goes to the liquor store and buys beer.
And that is just a huge disconnect for me. I don't understand that. Just go to work so you can afford your drugs. Like my brain doesn't compute that, because my life was very much the opposite. I was living and functioning and selling so that I could just pay the rent. Do you think that isolation made your addiction worse?
Probably.
Prolonged it and made it more severe?
Probably. And I think for me, because I was so isolated and I had what looked like on the surface a high level of success, looked like I was doing okay. When the bottom fell out on me and people were like, whoa, what's going on with you, man? Like, my family, it's like, dude, I've been this high for years. The only issue was I wasn't broke and losing everything I had. You know what I mean? Like, money kind of propped up my bullshit story. You know what I mean?
Plausible deniability.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Just a little sway.
So I think it got worse and worse and worse, and then it got to the point where I needed methamphetamine to get anything done. And then that worked when I didn't have anybody monitoring me and I had a little bit of money. You know, when I had to go to the corporate world, I did good enough. You know, I knew enough to shower. You know, I'd be up all day, all night for days on end. I'd get up and iron my slacks and, you know, take a shower, show up to work. And on the surface, I looked like I was presentable. I might have been a little sweaty and really good at my tasks during the day, you know. Fingers typing. That guy, he can type an email like nobody's business. But, you know, anyways, so I think it prolonged it, yes, like you said, in isolation. And then it made it worse because I was so naive when I was trying to hang on to my addiction and I had lost everything. I didn't understand the way things worked. I didn't understand how grimy people could be. I didn't understand that I was now Alice in Wonderland and I was off the deep end. That last 18 months of my addiction was very, very turbulent. It was enough for me. You know what I mean? People like you and other people that lived that life for a long time. Like I said, I lived a very different addiction path, and that last 18 months for me, that was enough. That was enough. I didn't want any more of that.
In meeting you, it helped open my eyes to the fact that addiction really does not discriminate. You know, I always thought addicts were like me, you know, and they're not. They're like Philip Seymour Hoffman, Robin Williams. You know, like anyone could be a drug addict or an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. It's you know, it's a mental thing.
And you don't, like I said, and the problem is people can be functioning for years. Like I was for years. And people, you know, my family are like, we just don't know what's happened to you. And I really want to be like, happened to me? You haven't been noticed I've been talking 100 miles an hour for the last 5 years? You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. Like, this isn't new. You know what I mean? But yes.
We do both still talk pretty fast.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so it's tough. But yeah, that's kind of the story. Like I said, and, you know, because of where I was at in my life, I got kind of layered up, you know, I got wrapped up into this little predicament of mine. And that's that was my first arrest. And, you know, after that, I just kept getting hooked up. I mean, by the time I finally got drug court, I was still answering for this charge, for this racket here, because all of them, you know, I kept getting bonded out, reoffending before I ever got court. So by the time I actually went to figure out if I'm going to prison or drug court, I had a list of charges.
That was your first felony besides all the incidences with the DWIs?
Yes. Yep.
So there was DWIs, then this felony charge of the fake prescriptions.
Yep.
And what was the charge name?
Oh, gosh. It was, you know, forgery.
Okay.
Forgery.
Felony forgery?
Yeah, felony forgery. Trying to obtain narcotics under false pretense. Because we used a fake name that I was filling it for. Right. It had several. It had like 3 or 4 felonies that were attached to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you got drug court.
Yeah, well, I got drug court. I picked up some other charges along the way when I got drug court. But yeah, I finally, like I said, that was my first arrest. And like I said, I just followed, you know, like Alice, I followed the rabbit down the rabbit hole, and it just got worse and worse for me. And by the time when I finally tapped, I was ready to accept prison or whatever's going to happen to me. Like I said, before I even answered and figured out, you know, from all my bullshit, before I even figured out what I was going to do, I got clean for like a couple months. I moved in with my grandma finally and cleaned up, and I didn't know if I was going to, you know, I could have just rode that one into the dust, you know what I mean? Just figured out, here's my final hurrah, I'm about to go to prison for who knows how long. I didn't. I'd had enough, you know, for about 30 days before I actually figured out if I was going to get drug court or not. I sobered up. I got rid of my phone, threw it out, you know, got off all my social media, and I just laid there with her, and, you know, I took that opportunity to get some clarity. And fortunately, so when I did get drug court, I understood, like, this is probably my last, you know, this is my chance, this is my moment. So that's it, folks. That's how it happens.
Ooh, crazy. That story makes me nervous every single time, but man, I'm going to link Reese's playlist in the description box down below. He has lived a crazy life. He has been curb stomped, set on fire, banned from Italy, arrested many, many times.
Made some, like I said, some foolish mistakes.
His face off.
And to be honest with you, I must have like the I don't know, male privilege, white privilege, or just lucky. I am fortunate. I'm not in a lot more trouble than I ever was. I skinned by a bunch.
Oh, and he was curb stomped, but he just has luck that I see every single day, like with tiny things, you know what I mean? Like, how did you find that parking spot? Or what do you mean the parking garage downtown didn't charge you? Like little things like that I see all the time in his life. For me, I'm like, oh, I lost the car in the parking garage behind a private commercial door. our lives.
It does seem to work out for me. Like I said, I'm very, very lucky that things could have gone a lot worse for me. My life could be a lot different.
And I think we live every day knowing how blessed we are. We are constantly talking about these stories in our personal life, and it keeps it on the forefront of our mind. We know that we could just as easily lose everything that we have if we fall back down, and we're very aware of our recovery. How many years do you have in yours? That many.
Oh gosh, 8. I was June 2013. I don't do the day. The date floats for me. I think we tried to say 26. Somebody, and I told a story like it was a Sunday or a Wednesday, and somebody's like, I looked back on the calendar 8 years ago, and that's not a Sunday. So
yeah.
Somebody tried to poke holes. So June 2013. Yeah.
You know, we don't work the program.
Yeah.
So we don't remember really. I remember, the only reason I remember my sober day is because it's the day I was arrested. It's on all my paperwork.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, I'm going to end today's video here. As always, we love you. Stay in recovery, whatever that looks like to you. Go watch all Reese's videos because they're intense. And I'll see you in my next one.